What's going on, everyone? GoodMicWork commentaries back at you with another edition of The One-Off. Haven't done one of these in a while. And for those of you who might be new to the channel and are wondering what the hell is The One-Off, this is a video segment that I created a few months back to take care of random wrestling topics in between podcasts. If any big news breaks, if we unfortunately have a wrestling death, or if there's anything funny going on like a movie review. I will be dedicating this video segment to discuss those sort of things that don't get covered on my regular weekly podcasts. And I was getting enough requests on social media from those of you who have already seen Fighting With My Family to do a review on it. And I thought to myself, you know what? That actually might be a really fun thing to do if I'm able to go see this movie. And I was able to check it out on Wednesday and definitely liked it and definitely thought it was worth coming up here and giving you guys a review on it. So I don't know what the audience for this video is going to be. I don't know if you guys have any interest in even hearing me do movie reviews at all. So this will kind of be an experiment. So it would really help me out if you would smash that thumbs up and at least try to get these likes up in case this happens to be a video that doesn't get quite as many views. And also, if you have not gone to the theater and seen Fighting With My Family yet, and you plan to, you should be able to listen to this review and not have too much spoiled for you. This isn't exactly, a cinematic masterpiece. They weren't breaking the mold, or reinventing the wheel with this movie. The story that was told, the framework of a movie like this could really be plugged into any situation. It's just about a girl chasing her dream. And it's a movie that, if you're an avid movie goer, you've probably seen many times before. But with the backdrop of wrestling, I thought it was one of the better wrestling movies that we've seen. I was not a big fan of The Wrestler years ago with Mickey Rourke. We've had absolutely ridiculous movies like back in the 80s with Body Slam and then in the 90s with Ready to Rumble. Wrestling has not been portrayed that well, I don't believe, in movies and television, and this was a really nice change of pace, just a gritty type of British movie, really captured the feel and really did a great job of telling the story of Paige's life, and it's a remarkable story. So I'll try to do my best here to warn you about any spoilers or anything that I might reveal about the movie, but trust me, even if I reveal something, I'm not going to be taking away from the film. I highly recommend you go and see it, and if you don't like to be spoiled by anything ever, then just turn this video off right now, go see the movie, and come back to me afterwards. Most everybody by now, I'm assuming, knows the backstory on this. We've all, as wrestling fans, heard about the production of this movie for quite some time. This has been in the works for a while. Now, this is based off of the real documentary that they did in Paige's hometown. I think it was Channel 4, done in 2012, maybe 2011, where it really chronicled and showcased her family and what kind of a wrestling family they are, and Paige's journey into the WWE. And if you go and take a look at that documentary, I think you can find it on YouTube, and then you take a look at this movie, you realize how brilliantly the casting was done. I think what really helped this movie is the great cast of characters that played Paige's family. It was directed by Stephen Merchant, who actually had a cameo in this movie. He played the girlfriend's father of one of Paige's brothers, Zach, and he was pretty funny in that. He was only in the movie for a couple of minutes, but a cute little cameo by Stephen Merchant. He's kind of a British legend. He was one of the original writers of The Office, the British version of The Office. He's acted, written, directed, and contributed to many movies throughout his career, and even worked with The Rock on the Tooth Fairy movie, which I think is how they got together. So I thought it was a great choice of a director. It was written and directed by Steven, and he doesn't even have any wrestling knowledge, not even a wrestling fan, but I thought he told the story very well. And like I said, the cast was great, especially Paige's parents. And I think Paige's mom, Sweet Soraya, played by Lena Headey, she almost stole the movie. I thought she was hilarious, and I thought she was an excellent casting choice for Paige's mom and fit the role perfectly. Her parents have a lot of character, very funny. The movie did a really good job of illustrating that, and I absolutely loved the casting of her parents. Thought both actors did a great job. Paige's brother Zach, who is another aspiring wrestler and trains wrestlers at their wrestling promotion and wrestling school, he is also trying to get into WWE, and they really tell a good story of, heartbreak and triumph at the same time, with Paige moving on to WWE and Zach never really being able to make it to that next level, even though he has as big of aspirations, if not more so, than Paige does. There's also a third brother, Roy, which in the movie they portray as kind of being a fuck-up, but the brother Zach, the one in the film who had his shit together, was played by Jack Lowden. Don't know much about him, but he did a really good job, I think, playing the role of Paige's brother, and you really had a lot of sympathy for him as the movie went on. Even when he was trying to be an asshole at times, you understood, kind of what he was going through, and you felt for him. And one of my favorite casting choices, and one of the most interesting and strange casting choices, was the head trainer of NXT, Hutch Morgan. my uncle, good old Uncle Hutch. I believe during this time that Paige was in NXT, the head trainer would have been Bill DeMott, I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong there. And we all know what wound up happening to him. So the head trainer in NXT is a completely fictional character, Hutch Morgan, played by none other than Vince Vaughn. Extremely interesting casting choice there, because when I see Vince Vaughn, all I think about is Wedding Crashers and Old School and all those comedies. You know, Anchorman is another one set right here in San Diego. So it's really hard to separate Vince Vaughn from those comedies back in the day and see him in this role now that has to be somewhat serious. Now, Vince did add some comedy to the role. I thought he did really well in the role, and he made me forget very early on in the movie that he is the same guy from Wedding Crashers and Old School because of what a great job he did. He was really like the conscience of the whole movie, and sometimes he had to offer up unkind and inconvenient truths while at the same time showing his more sympathetic side and being a mentor. And it was very real in terms of how they portrayed him. Hutch Morgan in the movie is a retired professional wrestler that really at best was probably a jobber. And although he did make it to the big time, he never became a big star, but still has a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge to offer and has become a trainer. And if you notice, some of the best coaches and trainers that professional wrestling has ever had, not all of them have been world champions. A lot of them have been underneath guys or guys that weren't in the business for very long, or at least in the ring for very long, and moved on to work in other parts of the business. And some of those guys turn out to be the best trainers and coaches. So I really liked that there was some reality to that sewn in, because even back in the day when Bill DeMott was heading up developmental, you know, we all know Hugh Morris and whatever the hell else he was in WCW, he was never really the biggest star, not even close. So I really liked that aspect of it. And in probably my favorite casting choice of the entire movie was the main character of Paige, played by Florence Pugh. And she's very young, I believe only 23. She has not had a lot of film and movies to her credit just yet, but I would hope that this is a breakout performance for this young actress. I hope this opens a ton of doors, because she did an absolutely marvelous job playing Paige. She looked a lot like her. She captured, you know, the essence of Paige, I feel, and she was absolutely impossible not to love. Just adorable, did a great job in the movie. You liked her from the minute you laid eyes on her, and she did a brilliant job as the lead in this movie, and I think she really stole the show and stole your heart, and you were really rooting for her through the whole movie. So, like I said, the story was rather typical. It's a type of story that you've seen many times in movies. You can take the outline and the framework of this and pretty much plug it into any scenario and it will work. But, you know, like I said, with the backdrop of wrestling and the right casting and the great director, I think it all came together in a really, really cute story, even though it's not the most unique movie in the world. But for a wrestling fan, I think it has something for everybody in there. And it's a great date movie. So fellas, if there's a girl that you like, but she doesn't like professional wrestling, take her to see this movie. You might be able to change her mind. I thought the movie did an excellent job of really portraying Paige's family and what a crazy wrestling family can be like. You know, we're used to wrestling families like the Von Erichs, the Funks, the Guerreros, the Harts. You know, we were really never exposed to this wrestling family until Paige made it to the big time. And the way, you know, they captured everything and just how the family functions and what kind of a relationship they have with each other. I mean, it opens up. The very first scene in the movie is a 10-year-old or 9-year-old Paige wrestling with 9 or 10-year-old Zach, and she's screaming, and the parents are critiquing them that they have the chokehold on wrong. Her bedroom is all decked out with a bunch of wrestling posters, and one interesting poster that's on the wall of Rose McGowan, who in the movie or in the TV show Charmed, I guess her name was Paige. I didn't know that. I've never watched Charmed. But we'll find out later on in the movie that Paige, whose real name is Soraya and wrestled as Brittany Knight, she would have to change her name for WWE, and she picked Paige because of Rose McGowan's character on Charmed. Now, I don't even know if that's true or not, but what's interesting about that is it made me remember that Rose McGowan is actually in Ready to Rumble, isn't she? Isn't she like the lead Nitro girl? I thought that was an interesting kind of just tie in there and fun fact that I saw Rose McGowan on Paige's wall. And apparently that's where the Paige name came from, according to the movie. After years of wrestling, I think she was in the ring at age 11 or something like that, wrestling with her brother. She would gain all that experience and be a big part of that family business. All the while, the father constantly calls WWE and sends him tapes to try to get his kids jobs with the WWE. Now, in the movie, they tell the story that they get a tryout at SmackDown at the O2 Arena. I'm not really sure where their tryout came, but I don't think it was in that environment. And that's where you see the scene with The Rock that's in all of the trailers where he cuts the promo on Paige and her brother and does this whole deal. They meet him there, and it was so cute at the end when Paige goes, "That was The Rock." I kept saying that all day for some reason. If you close your eyes, she sounds very much like Paige. Even her voice is spot on. So I thought she just did a wonderful job. Paige, of course, as we know, I'm not spoiling anything for you, does get picked and does get signed to WWE to go work in developmental. Now, I think at the time when Paige was actually signed, FCW was still around. I think it was still Florida Championship Wrestling. That was right in the middle of the transition into NXT. I could be wrong on that, but I'm not even sure if she was there. So they might have had to change a few things around for the purposes of the movie. But she does fly all the way to Orlando and report to NXT. All of that footage was in the original documentary of her family saying goodbye to her in the airport. The actual footage of that does exist. And they recreated that in the movie very well. And it was sad because at the time, Paige is an 18-year-old kid, and she's leaving to go across the ocean to the other side of the country. It's not like she's living in Cleveland and going down to Orlando. She's living in England. That's a long way away. So it's got to be scary for a kid, especially when she wanted her brother to go with her and he didn't get picked and she had to go on her own. That's scary for anyone that's going out chasing their dreams when you have to make a big life transition or decision and you're doing it all on your own at such a young age. It's hard not to respect anybody, for going through that. And it wasn't all easy going for in NXT as well. One thing I did like about the movie, and again, I shouldn't be spoiling anything for you here, is that Paige didn't really match up to the other females in NXT. They were the blonde, bombshell, stripper, dancer types that we had become used to with the divas. We remember back to those days, all through the 2000s. It seemed like every woman, with the exception of a few. You had the Molly Hollies, you had the Victorias, you had the Trishas, the Litas, the Jazzes, the Beth Phoenixes. You had a few good talents and a few good hands out there, but for the most part, the entire women's or divas division was still tits and ass. That's all it was. It was models that were molded into wrestlers. It was looks first and everything else is secondary. And that really changed, and Paige was a big part of that. So when she arrived in NXT and she's surrounded by all these beautiful exotic dancers, she doesn't match. She doesn't fit in. And what I thought the movie was going to do and the direction I thought they were going to take us in is that it was going to be like Mean Girls, where these really pretty girls are going to be bullying Paige, but WWE didn't do that. They're not going to paint their own company in a bad light. This is a WWE Studios film, and they actually turned the corner with the girls, and Paige wound up befriending them, and they befriended each other after a little bit of a rocky start in the end. So I really like that all turned out to be a happy ending, and those girls were all fictional. They weren't portraying anybody. I was kind of wondering at that time, well, who would have been in developmental with Paige around that time? I was trying to envision which one of these girls is Charlotte, and I don't know if any of them were really supposed to be anyone. NXT was not really presented that realistically, which is fine, and that's the advice I offer to any wrestling fan that might want to point things out and say, hey, there's no way that's true or that's got to be different. You got to put that out of your mind and just try to enjoy the movie for what it is, and I tried my best, and I did a pretty good job of not being a snotty wrestling fan when I was in there and calling out all the mistakes because I didn't care. It's not a biography. And eventually, Paige, of course, goes on to really impress in NXT, and she has the wrestling experience unlike a lot of the students that she is training with. She's been wrestling since she was a kid and has many years of experience despite her young age, where everybody in the ring around her really hasn't had that. And that's when she starts to break out. And that's when they decide to bring her up in the main roster. And that was one part of the movie where you knew that wasn't true. In the movie, Paige is being told that she's going to join the main roster by The Rock in a private suite at WrestleMania 30 during the show. And we all know The Rock opened up WrestleMania 30 with that classic promo with Austin and Hogan. The family goes apeshit, of course. They can't believe it. They're going to invite a bunch of people over the next night. And in a funny cameo, too, right before I think Paige heard the news, you see the Big Show and Sheamus in catering, piling up hot dogs or something on their plate. So that was a fun little cameo by those two guys. I was surprised they didn't have more wrestlers in that. So it was pretty quick. Blink and you would have missed it. But Sheamus and the Big Show were in this movie for about a second. And then, of course, Paige arrives at Monday Night Raw the next night, and we all know how this story goes. And it was really interesting, the stunt doubles in this for AJ Lee, because AJ Lee, of course, was not in the movie. She's not even affiliated with WWE whatsoever anymore, and she wasn't during the filming of this movie either. But her stunt double was, the actress playing AJ Lee, I should say, was none other than Zelina Vega, who's a big part of SmackDown right now. I thought she made an excellent AJ Lee, and it was kind of funny and weird and surreal to see that Divas title, back. I mean, I hated that belt. I'm so glad that it's gone. And the stunt double for Florence Pugh, who of course was playing Paige, was Tessa Blanchard. A pretty good gig for Tessa to get that as a stunt double. We all remember when this was filmed not that long ago at the Staples Center. That was the same night that I think The Rock came out to the ring and called CM Punk on his telephone. If this was any other movie with any other sort of sport or form of entertainment or anything else in the backdrop other than wrestling, I probably wouldn't have even blinked twice at this movie, but, it tugged. It tugged on good old MicWork's heartstrings a little bit just to see, a story told of one of our own. She's a wrestler, and we're all proud of stories like this because it is such a good one. And unfortunately, the story doesn't really end there. They could make a part 2 on this movie easily because we all have seen what has happened to Paige since the filming of this movie was done, and since the story ends in this movie, the story kept on going for her. So depending on where Paige's life takes her, who knows? We might get a part 2 in this someday. But like I said, it was one of the better wrestling movies that have ever come out. And at the end, too, since it is kind of a true story or based on a true story, they always give you a little text giving you updates on where people are now in their lives. And the funniest one was with The Rock. And I think it said something like, The Rock has gone on to have a very successful career outside of wrestling. Yeah, no shit. So I thought that was kind of a funny little joke there at the end. Runs through everybody else as well, what her parents are doing and what her brothers are doing. They're both still working for their promotion, just like always. There was even a blind kid that I wasn't even sure was accurate or not. But after a little bit of research, there is a blind kid in their wrestling school that Paige's brother actually taught how to wrestle, and they do mention him at the end of the movie as well. So I really liked the way they showed her family as a wrestling family, especially the brother. He would pick up all the students for wrestling class in a big van. They would rock out to some AC/DC on the way to the gym, and they'd have a good time in there and learn a lot and bust their ass, for nothing. They're all just kind of down on their luck people, kind of living in poverty, but all having a good time, enjoying wrestling together, and they all seem to be generally very happy people with what they're doing in their lives. So when it comes to wrestling movies, I definitely give this one the GoodMicWork seal of approval, and I highly recommend everybody going to see it. Apparently it has gotten great reviews so far. I haven't heard too many negative things at all about this movie, and I believe it's already made back its budget. I think it's already covered what it cost to produce this film in the first couple days alone of its release. So that's promising. That's great. Congratulations to everybody involved. And thank you, Rock, for being part of this project as well. I really enjoyed it. And that means a lot coming from a guy that doesn't watch movies. You guys know me. I mention it all the time in live streams. I'm not really a movie goer. I've missed all of the good movies. I don't see anything. I don't even really like going to movies, to be honest with you. But I enjoyed every second of this one. Thank you very, very much to the lovely Miss Elizabeth for accompanying me to this movie. I probably would not have gone without you. If you have already gone to see this movie, let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Would love to hear your reviews or any of your critiques you might have for this movie. And like I said, it doesn't end here. It's such a shame what would wind up happening to Paige after this happened. She was out of action for over a year, dealing with the neck injury and the neck surgery. She had 2 wellness policy violations that resulted in suspensions, 30 days and 60 days. She wound up dating Alberto Del Rio, which was toxic from the word go. She was making a fool of herself. I was giving Paige kind of a hard time in a couple of my podcasts back in the day because, she was just posting videos with Alberto Del Rio where they're just wasted and out of their mind. She's tweeting weird shit. She's clearly fucked up on drugs and heading down a very, very dark road. And I think had it not been for this movie, Paige probably would have been let go. She was getting really irresponsible there for a while, and I thought that it was a horrible relationship for her to be in, to be 24 years old, dating Alberto Del Rio, who is 40 or 41 years old. And it was just, it was ugly. It was just bad. And then, of course, the horrible sex tape leaks that happened to her, which aren't her fault. You can't fault her for that. That was her privacy that was violated. but still not very flattering that she's got not just one sex tape, but multiple sex tapes with WWE wrestlers. You know, the one where she's having sex in the locker room, and then the title belt is involved in another one. Just not good stuff. Not good stuff at all. So Paige has kind of turned things around. You know, she was able to return to the ring for a very short time, and then she got injured. And you guys have to tell me, how long was she in the ring before that happened? 2 months. I would say it was 2 months, maybe at the most. And she took that bump at a house show, and that was it for her. Doctors told her not to wrestle again. So the fact that this girl is 26 years old, and she's already had a movie made about her, and her wrestling career is all but over, is I don't want to say it's a tragedy, it's just sad. You know, and Paige is still with the company. They made her the general manager of SmackDown, but after the McMahons shook things up in December, that left her without an on-air role, which I thought was surprising. You would think they would want to have Paige on TV right now during the promotion of this movie, but all she's done is come out a time or two on TV to introduce a trailer or a promo or something like that for the movie. So I thought they should have utilized Paige a little bit more. I'm hoping that since she is so young, at only 26 years old, maybe there's some advancements, you know, in medicine or whatever the deal is with her neck, and maybe she actually is able to get back in the ring one day. I would really hate to think that her career is over at this age, but with a neck, it's hard, you know. That's a lot of guys had to retire because of that. You know, like Stone Cold Steve Austin and Edge, you know, one bad bump could render you paralyzed, and you can't risk it. If that's a possibility, if you're going in the ring every night risking paralysis, you need to retire. And I just really hope this is not the end of Paige's story, and whatever she winds up doing, I don't want to see her leave the wrestling business. I hope WWE finds another role for her. I hope she doesn't wind up getting released or fails another wellness test, you know, has to be let go. I just hope whatever the final chapter is for Paige, it's a happy one and it's a pleasant one, and it doesn't turn out, you know, to be any sort of tragedy. My fingers are crossed, and my thoughts are with Paige, wherever life might take her next. But definitely go check out the movie, and when you do, let me know what you think in the comments below, or you can send them to me on social media. Hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. Links are right there in the description below. Hope you guys enjoyed this quick, brief movie review. If you would like to see more of these things in the future, or if there are things you would like me to do differently in these type of reviews, let me know down below. I'll talk to y'all real soon. Be good. Until next time, peace.